And you know who else is a defending champion? Somehow is Alex Pereira, who last November, which is not long ago, beat Israel Adesanya by knockout in Madison Square Garden to claim the middleweight title and continue to be a scourge on Adesanya's career and life, and continues their rivalry over from kickboxing. Now, do you consider this a part of like a quadrilogy rather than, a sequel?
I do, Joe. I do. And I can't help but feel like the first two fights played a role in how the third fight ultimately played out, because it was a similar story. Adesanya led the dance, was favoured by those judging and scoring until Poatan came in and got that big head of his square onto Adesanya's and unleashed some hooks. Changed the fight. As he has done in the past. So absolutely, this is fight number 4. It's 3-0 right now, Joe. But despite that, Adesanya comes in as favourite. Why is that?
I think it's the schedule he had before the Pereira fight, and the fact that he has pretty much dominated everyone he's faced who is actually a middleweight and not a heavyweight disguised as a middleweight. Case in point, Alex Pereira. Jan Blachowicz at light heavyweight as well. I think there is something to that can be discussed further. But to go back to like an analogy here, is just like, I think we can admit that maybe Adesanya is a more well-rounded mixed martial arts fighter, or we have been shown to be a more well-rounded mixed martial arts fighter. He's got every tool you would probably want. He's got a beautiful specialised skill in kickboxing. And then Pereira turns up, big meaty left hook, down you go, pal. There's a similar link, if we're going to cross sports like we have with kickboxing to MMA, between, I think, Adesanya, the Man City, to Pereira's Tottenham, the turning up to ruin their day, despite, no matter how bad they are. I don't know. And also, can I ask you this, Tom? Do you actually consider this to be a rivalry? Like, he's 3-0 up in the rivalry. It's not really that close on the score.
Joe, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's flip this narrative that you presented to me. Pereira's beat the guy 3 times. He vanquished him from kickboxing, him, sent him packing, went off to another sport, heard this boy chatting some nonsense, but he got lucky a couple of times. Adesanya, to quote him, he said that Pereira will be that old man down the pub looking at Adesanya on the TV saying, "Oh yeah, I beat him once. I did, kids. I beat him." Pereira, okay, I'll just come, change over the sport, wrestling. What's that? No bother. Give me knock out this fool. A couple of fights later, inevitably matched up with Adesanya. They meet again, and he dusts him off, packs him away, and somehow he's got to fight him again for a 4th time. Let the man move on.
I know. Now someone really nailed this, and it's Chuck Mendenhall, the MMA journalist, writer, broadcaster, who said maybe Adesanya's not the main character of this story, and that really Pereira is the main character. And when he said that, it was just like really illuminated something to me of like, we've been sold Adesanya for a long time. We've been sold on this superstar persona, glitzy entrances, anime references. He's a bit more of like a youngster, and then just this. Oh, that dark, shadowy corner with Pereira with his cold glare, even with like a joyous moment. He's got a belt wrapped around his waist, and he's like, it looks like he's just thinking about atrocities that he's seen and experienced. He's the main character. At this point in time, he is 3-0 up. It doesn't matter how popular Adesanya is, Pereira is the main character. And if he beats Adesanya again, there is no rivalry, as Cormier said after he lost to Jones.
Yeah, iconic words. Of course, Cormier did find a way to reinvent himself, pile on a load of weight, and go up a division. Unfortunately, I think if Adesanya were to do that here, Joe, you know what would happen? Pereira would follow him up and finish him one more time. It's truly amazing. It's been great to have Pereira in the UFC, and it was really just incredible. The fashion in which he finished him in the 5th round last time out back in November. Pretty quick turnaround since then. Do you think either of them will have added a couple of extra wrinkles? What game plans do you expect them to come with? Any changes you can see?
I mean, the wrinkles I'm thinking of is the stress for Pereira from cutting weight again, because he's already cutting weight. Like, he was cutting weight 2 weeks ago. He is ginormous, and, win or lose, I think this is his last fight at middleweight. I don't think he's going to be making this cut again. Hamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker, I'll see you later, pal. Like, he's not fighting them fools. I think if we're looking at wrinkles, I would say the grappling will be quite an interesting position, because I think Adesanya struck on something in that fight that I think he could probably lean on again to tire Pereira out. Now, obviously, he did tire him out in that fight anyway, and it didn't matter in the end because Pereira charged forward and realised he was losing and had to get the finish, and did so. But it's the body lock that really interests me with Adesanya, because it takes Pereira out of range. He can't land on him from there, and Adesanya can wear on him, drag him down. And you know what, man? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Adesanya, if he gets him in that position again, like he did in the first fight, off a body lock and a throw, gets to the back. If he doesn't just attack a sub, get Pereira moving, get his hands fighting, getting into a hand fight battle in like a sub attack, and actually a bit more ferocious ground and pound. Like, I would expect Adesanya to start to add that in if he gets into those positions.
Well, something that, stood out to me when they did have that exchange on the mat, I think it was the third round in the first fight, is Adesanya did look a lot more accomplished in those positions.
For sure.
Nice wrist control. Pereira, wasn't able to post up. Adesanya was controlling that all the time. He was wary of what to look out for. And Pereira actually was making a few mistakes. He was losing out in positions. And I think it also did tire him. So ultimately, you've got to look at Adesanya and think he's going to want to implement more grappling, more wrestling. However, though it has only been 6 months, that's 6 months in Danbury, Connecticut, with Glover Teixeira teaching you all he knows. One of the great wrestlers who transitioned to MMA, or jiu-jitsu practitioners, shall we say. Well,
who took to wrestling later on in his career and made it his main game plan, and had a superb ground game, like heavy ground game.
You've got to imagine that Pereira's been putting in that work, because ultimately, what was he vulnerable to in that first fight? Yes, Adesanya, we know he's a fantastic switch hitter, that he can escape out the corner when you press forwards. He's very evasive. He's very good at controlling the distance. He's very good at measuring. However, ultimately, Pereira was able to weather that, and Adesanya couldn't hit him with enough to keep him off him. Outside of that first round, where Adesanya finished with a nice combination late in that first round, I think what we saw is Pereira starting to walk Adesanya down. Yeah. So you move on to what the next possible threat could be. Yeah, Pereira struggled in the wrestling exchange, and I think surely he's going to be wise to the fact that that could be an element of Adesanya's game. Yeah,
it's interesting that that seems to be like, I don't know, it seems to be the main thing that people are talking about, of like, what can Adesanya add or change. The other thing I would suggest that he changed is, don't concede that much ground to him. You saw it in that fight when he pressed forward. Pereira didn't really have that much for him. He was causing him issues, and I loved the combo that Adesanya landed, which was the 1-2, but it was a delayed 1-2. He'd throw out the jab, and he'd leave the jab hand out there to either post off of or to obscure Pereira's vision, and he'd throw in the right hand behind it. And that's what caught him at the end of the first, rocked him slightly, left hook coming. And when he landed that left hook, if you see there's a reverse angle, the right hand's coming back immediately. Like, he was about to finish him. And Pereira was very lucky with that, the timing of it. And Adesanya was unlucky due to the finish of that. But he kept landing it. Delayed 1-2, delayed 1-2. And there was a really nice change-up as well, where he threw the straight, not to the head, but to the body later in the fight as well, just to like continue to sap at Pereira's stamina. So I'm expecting Adesanya to do the same thing. He did it in kickboxing as well, where he threw out the delayed 1-2, obscure the vision. Pereira has to move his hands to clear it out the way, and then see what's happening, and then the right hand coming down it. Also, Adesanya did as well, through the left hand jab. It was mostly from orthodox. Leave the hand out there, and would actually move his jab hand back down and pull one of Pereira's hands out the way to clear the path for the right hand. And I'm wondering if he's going to implement that still, or maybe he'll make it a 3-shot combo from there. Maybe he could throw a high kick from there as well. Maybe that delayed 1-2 is purely a setup for the high kick. Maybe he could throw a left hook off of that as well.
Well, it's interesting Sorry, Joe.
Go on.
Cut you off there. No, it's interesting that you highlighted Adesanya kind of with the hand fighting with Pereira. Now, yeah, that was enabling him to get off some shots. We know he likes to throw that right hand kind of to Pereira's left ear, just again and again and again. That's the big shot. But in fighting the hands, grabbing at Pereira's left hand specifically to land his own shots, that ultimately takes a little bit away from his defense. It leaves a bit of vulnerability there if you're reaching out for that. Then your hands are not up by protecting yourself.
Yeah,
and I think that was a big element in the combination that actually we saw Pereira capitalize on and ended up finishing Adesanya. I think Adesanya was getting a little bit too cute. So whilst you say yes, marching forward and kind of putting Pereira a bit more on the back feet, I think Adesanya is going to be extremely wary of doing that. I think he's because he's such a cerebral, intelligent fighter. He's just not comfortable fighting like that.
No.
And when you've been knocked out twice by this guy, he's a bit more than a boogeyman now. He's really your worst nightmare. He's followed you to another sport. You've kind of diminished him, and he's come and finished you again, Joe, again. Dethroned you at middleweight.
Yeah, and when you were on the verge of getting into the Anderson Silva territory, which, you know, as Kamaru Usman can testify with the GSP category, he's just never going to get there now. He's never going to be on Anderson Silva's level, and in terms of legacy, you know, and maybe these guys shouldn't fight like that anyway. They shouldn't be thinking about that. They should be going fight to fight.
No, but we know, Joe, a second loss here, and it kind of just changes the whole narrative on what Adesanya's done, what he did in the UFC. Like you said, maybe actually Pereira, he's the main character, and Adesanya was just a footnote, a placeholder until the better man came along. And a second win would certainly confirm that. Imagine Adesanya marching forward, grabbing at Pereira's hands and getting knocked out.
I mean, it's plausible.
It's very plausible, and I just don't think Adesanya will be able to come forward. I think he's going to fall back into the counter-striker position in which he's so comfortable, so effective defensively, and it's hard for me to not see the same patterns emerging that we saw in the first fight. Adesanya moving out to the side, evading Pereira, who's coming rushing forwards, and Adesanya switching, beautiful, elegant striking, but not throwing enough to stall Pereira.
No.
And Pereira starting to put those hands on him, Joe.
Well, that was the thing that got me as well in my rewatch, was that Pereira was getting into those positions and he was throwing huge shots and he was missing. And, you know, he was missing by quite a bit, but it was just like he had mistimed him. Do you know what I mean? It was like he was like, I'm throwing this and I kind of know I'm about to miss, but I will get you. I will get you eventually. Let's go to that finish itself. Like, there was a bit of like complaining about it, like, oh, he didn't go out, whatever. We didn't need to see him go out. Like, it was 2 shots away and he was going to be slumped on the floor unconscious. I'm
grimacing, Joe.
Why?
I'm not grimacing because of the nature of the shots. I'm grimacing because I'm still not 100% convinced. Like,
you don't think he was done? Bent over at the waist, like losing consciousness.
Weaving. I'm sorry,
no,
Joe.
Bobbing into unconsciousness as Pereira has got 2 fucking grenades in his hand, ready to unload on you. Like, nah, man, that was severe brain damage that was heading Adesanya's way. Not like he's not going to throw like an Imanari roll and get into a leg entanglement to like slow Pereira down. There was going to be a switch knee going in there without him being able to see it. Like, that's what we were heading towards. So I think the controversy about that finish needs to be ignored. Do you think Pereira's going to add anything? Like, I think he's just going to march forward the same way and throw the kicks the same way. I think that was the other thing that really impressed me in my rewatch, was his checking of the leg kicks, and even on the feints, Adesanya was throwing feints and he was checking them. Like, the turn was just so natural. He wasn't even thinking about it, looking at it. That's something that Adesanya, I think, really struggled in this. Was like, this guy is off his level, striking-wise. Maybe not in terms of complexity, but just experience. Do you know what I mean? And like pure technique. He's on that level. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very fair comment. Just to round back on what you said about whether Pereira will have added something, no, but I do think he will be. But I do think he will have been drilling with Glover. And I think let's also remember that Pereira did have success in the second round with a takedown of his own. Yeah. It got some cheers.
Only the last 10 seconds with no ground. Still.
Joe, it was unanimous. Everyone scored the round for Pereira.
By the way, after getting rocked at the end of the first, he came back and won that round.
And the only round that he did win until finishing Adesanya. So, it's a nice tool to have in there. He got that takedown, Joe. It started off on a single leg, bit clumsy, made it into a bit more of a double leg, and then turned the corner, sat Adesanya down. Didn't matter what happened after that. It's a nice little reminder to have in there. Just keeps Adesanya, keeps him smart, keeps him honest. So I think, both that and also being prepared for clinch exchanges, for a potential body lock from Adesanya.
I wouldn't be surprised if Pereira, by the way, implements more of like a straight jab, particularly if you can get Adesanya up against the fence, a double jab as well to push him back there, rather than just sort of like wading in with single big shots and hooking combos.
It's
if
the
you
speed,
can,
Joe. It's the speed.
Yeah.
It's such a problem. Adesanya is so quick, not just in his retreat and moving out the side, but also in getting the shot in there before.
Yeah.
I think if you sort of started seeing Pereira come forward with a jab heavy approach, I think that's bait for Adesanya to counter him. Personally.
I'm not even saying jab heavy, but I'm maybe thinking in certain points if he could use it and get him to escape out certain sides, cut off certain angles for him. I don't know, man. It's hard, man.
More left hooks.
Fair enough.
Can I hear your prediction?
You want to hear my prediction? I have gone for Tom a Alex Pereira knockout win.
He loves it,
man. I'm sorry, man. He's done it before, twice now in two different sports, and he's knocked him out twice. And I'm sorry, man, I think November to April is not enough time to come back from that sort of finish. And I think just in terms of that logistics, and then also just some guys just have your number, man. Like, Tottenham Hotspur will knock you out the Champions League, Man City. Like, there's just not much you can do about it. He just seems to have it. And it gets into this narrative side to me now where I'm like, I think he's kind of the man. Like, I think he's gonna win this. I think he's gonna go up. And if Prohaska isn't the light heavyweight champion and has to face Jamal Hill, Pereira's gonna knock Jamal Hill out. So like that's Joe, just
I love it. I absolutely love this timeline. I'm so happy they signed him. And
I love him. I love him.
I like his aura. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
The coming out with the bow and the arrow, and it's just and by the way, him doing that with Adesanya in the cage, oh man, get that WWE production in there now.
Fantastic. Good news for me is that I think regardless of the result here, that path is open to Pereira for him to go up to light heavyweight.
Oh, he's going up there,
but
heavyweight.
He's a fantastic addition, and he's got a much more favourable roster, let's say, at heavyweight. Even off the back of a loss here, which is what I've predicted, I think Adesanya comes out, same game plan, but without getting finished, and gets the job done.
Wow. Fair enough.
Outpoints him, Joe. Classic counter-striker display, elusive, the Adesanya we know, staying away from all that brawling stuff, staying away from any forward pressure, and evading him for 25 minutes.
And then what? Pereira moves up to light heavy, and Adesanya follows him up there once Pereira becomes the champion.
It's not over.
It won't be over, bro. You can't lose 3 times, win the 4th one, going like, well, I've won the rivalry. It's just like, you haven't. Like, he would have to beat him again in another title fight in MMA for me to think like they're kind of equal. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would have to be 3-2 within that realm. Because otherwise, it's just like... And if it's 4-0, bro, like, that rivalry's done. put a bow on it.